But
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble all goes to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisance. All goes to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so we're going to read this one, but so Namo Shupadaya Krishna Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarane. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought because of this. Om Agyantam Randasya Nanjana Shakaya Chakshuramitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yona Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Namaskritam Naram Chava Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayadutire Shrinuta Swakata Krishna Punya Sarvana Kirtanam Hirdam Tasla Patrani Vidnuti Sutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Apadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadda Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you. Thank you, Puna Mataji, for joining as well.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mataji. So we're in chapter 11. Last week, Balatai Prabhu read Canto 1, chapter 11, Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwarka. Last week, Balatai Prabhu read verse 2, and previously, Damodar Leela Mataji had read verse 1. So just to kind of get a sense of what we did, or what the prior verses were, I think some of us probably were not at, for example, last week's session, just because of all the amount of different sessions that were going on simultaneously. So original is Lord Krishna has left Hastinapur, and and he is arriving into Dwarka, and basically, this verse is glorifying his conch. This verse is glorifying his touch, and this verse is glorifying sound. So, so he arrives, he blows his conch shell, and that indicates his arrival, and then citizens of Dwarka, residents of Dwarka, are once again peaceful. I really like verse 2. I remember when I first read it, I thought it was just mind-blowing. It talks about the conch being gripped by the hand of Krishna and blown by him, and how it becomes red by the touch of his transparent lips. And it looked like a swan in a lake of lotuses. Very visually attractive verse. So we're in verse 3, and I'm displaying the verse. And if for whatever reason my internet cuts out, I had to reset the internet. Just stick up a hand or something to let me know.
I don't know it's your internet or my internet, but it's breaking in between. Devotees, would you please tell it's happening for you also or only for me?
Are the rest of you also noticing my internet voice is breaking up?
It seems fine to me, Prabhu, at least from my side.
Okay.
It seems fine for me too, Prabhuji.
Okay. Radhakund Mataji, I've certainly, like in the Bhagavad Gita session we had Friday, and the Bhagavatam we had yesterday. Well, the Bhagavad Gita we had Friday. Devotees were saying it was breaking out. So yesterday I reset the internet, and devotees said it was going okay, but.
Okay, Prabhuji, no problem. Please continue. It might be my problem only.
Yeah, forgive me if it kind of comes out weird. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tam upashrutya ninadam jagat bhayavaham prati udayayu praja sarva bhatre darshana lalasa tam upashrutya nindam jagat bhayavaham prati udaya praja sarva bhatre darshana lalasa tam upashrutya nindam tan upashrita nindanam jagat bhava ayam pratiyudya praja sarva bhatra darshana lalasaha tam upashrutya nindanam jagat bhaya avaham pratiyudya praja sarva bhatra darshana lalasaha. Anybody like to chant? You all have much more sweeter voices. Please chant.
Hey, Prabhu, can try, Prabhu.
Sure, please.
Tam upashutya ninadam jagat bhayavaham pratyudayahu praja sarvam bhratar darshana lalasa.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Tamupasrutya ninadan jagadbhayavaham pratyudhyayuhu prajah sarva bhratradarshana. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Neela Mataji or others?
Thank you,
Anita
Prabhuji.
Mataji.
I'll try. Thank you for giving
I
me
don't
the
mean to
opportunity.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I mean, I'm always shy because sometimes I don't pronounce it very good, but I will do my best. I'll try.
We'll do
Tam
better than me.
uprashatya ninadam jagad bhayavaham pratyudhyayu praja sarva pratir darshana talasaha.
Thank you, Mataji. Okay, I guess we'll start. So tam, that, upashrutya, having overheard, ninadam, sound, jagat bhaya, the fear of material existence, bhaya avaham, the threatening principle, prati, towards, udayu, rapidly proceeded, prajaha, the citizens, sarva, all, bhattar, the protector, darshana, audience, lalasaha, having so desired. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. The citizens of Dwarka, having heard that sound which threatens fear personified in the material world, began to run towards him fast just to have a long desired audience with the Lord, who is protector of all devotees. The citizens of Dwarka, having heard that sound which threatens fear personified in the material world, began to run towards him fast just to have a long desired audience with the Lord, who is the protector of all the devotees. Purport by His Divine Grace. As already explained, the citizens of Dwarka, let me just scroll up so it's all there. As already explained, the citizens of Dwarka who lived at a time of Lord Krishna's presence were all liberated souls who descended there along with the Lord as entourage. All were very anxious to have an audience with the Lord, although because of spiritual contact, they were never separated from the Lord. Just as the gopis of Vrindavan used to think of Krishna while he was away from the village of cow herding engagements, the citizens of Dwarka were all immersed in thought of the Lord while he was away from Dwarka to attend the battle of Kurukshetra. Some distinguished fiction writer in Bengal concluded that the Krishna of Vrindavan and that of Mathura and that of Dwarka were different personalities. Historically, there's no truth in this conclusion. The Krishna of Kurukshetra and the Krishna of Dwarka are the one and same personality. The citizens of Dwarka were thus in a state of melancholy due to the Lord's absence from the transcendental city, as much as we are put in a state of melancholy at night because of the absence of the sun. The sound heralded by Lord Krishna was something like the heralding of the sunrise in the morning. So all the citizens of Dwarka awoke from a state of slumber because the sunrise of Krishna and they all hasten towards him just to have an audience. The devotees of the Lord know no one else as a protector. The sound of the Lord is identical with the Lord, as we have tried to explain by the non-dual position of the Lord. The material existence of our present status is full of fear. Out of the four problems of material existence, namely the food problem, the shelter problem, fear problem, and the mating problem, the fear problem gives us more trouble than others. We are always fearful due to our ignorance of the next problem. The whole material existence is full of problems, and thus the fear problem is always prominent. This is due to our association with the illusory energy of the Lord, known as Maya, or external energy. Yet all fears vanish as soon as there is sound of the Lord represented by his holy name, as it was sounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the following 16 words. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We can take advantage of these sounds and be free from all threatening problems of material existence. Tam upashrutya nindanam jagad bhaya bhaya avham Yudhya Raja Sarva Bhattir Darshana Lalasaha. The citizen of Dwarka, having heard that sound which threatens fear personified in the material world, began to run towards him fast, just to have a long desired audience with the Lord, who is the protector for all the devotees. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Itanavane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Shri Shunyavadi Pashataya Deshatarine. So, Tam Prashitya Nindanam, having the meaning, the sound of the conch shell. So, what is Lord Krishna's conch shell called? It's called Panchajanya. Panchajanya. I'll talk a little bit about that. Jagad Bhaya Bhaya Avaham. The sound of his conch gives fear to the dangers of material existence. Pratitya Prajaha. Pratitya Prajaha Sarva. All the citizens of Dwarka quickly went to meet him upon hearing the sound of his conch shell, which pushed away the fear of material existence. Bhatra Darshana Lasaha. They have a desire to see their Lord. So, upon hearing the conch shell of the Lord, which destroyed the fear of material existence, the citizens went to meet the Lord with enthusiasm because they had a desire to see the Lord, their master and protector. So, try to pick out certain portions of the purport that I think carry the main theme of the sound of Krishna's conch shell being non-different from Krishna, the immersion of devotees in thoughts of Krishna, and fear of material existence, and that how that sound drives away that fear of material existence. So let's see how it goes. So I'll first come to this, the sound of the conch shell. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the conch is known as Panchajanya. Does anybody know how it got that name, the conch shell of Krishna's? So it's explained. Go ahead, please.
No, is it the name of a demon who took
Yes. Yes, exactly. So Bhagavatam explains, Krishna book talks about this too, that Krishna Balaramji left their home with Nanda and Yashoda, and they desired to serve their spiritual master, whose name is Sandapani Muni. And they were serving him, and they offered, and Sandipani Muni was very pleased by this. If you want to understand the mood of their service, a very beautiful pastime is the Sudama Brahman pastime, where Sudama Brahman and Lord Krishna recollect their time together in the ashram of their Guru Sandipani Muni. It's very, very sweet. Please read it. So eventually, the two lords, Krishna and Balaram, were leaving. And so they offered Sandipani Muni any gift he desired. And does anybody know what gift Guru Dakshina Sandipani Muni requested in return?
He asked them to bring his son.
Yes, yes. So we saw that they were very powerful. Otherwise he would have brought back his son. But his son had died at a place called Prabhasha. Prabhasha is, I didn't know where it was, so I looked it up. It's in Gujarat, and it has the temple of Somnath. And there, it also happens, some believe it's a place where Lord Krishna left his earthly Leela. So Krishna went to the ocean, Krishna Balaramji went to the ocean, and Krishna asked the ocean to return his spiritual master's son. And the ocean, being very respectful and having the experience of what Lord Ram did when the ocean was not cooperating, Lord Ram, just by his glance, instructed the ocean that the ocean is his servant, not his master. So the ocean immediately replied that there's a demon, like Prabhuji was saying, by the name Panchajanya, who had taken the son of Sandipani Muni away. And so upon hearing this, Krishna dove into the ocean and he killed that demon. And he took the shell that had grown around the body of the demon. But when Krishna, however, did not find his Guru's son within the demon, so the demon hadn't taken the son within himself, like in his belly. So Krishna then went to Yamraj's loka, and Krishna blew the conch shell when he entered into that dham. And Yamraji came forward and offered his appropriate worship of the Lord. Then the Lord asked Yamraj for Sandipani Muni's son, and Yamraj immediately gave the son to Krishna and Balaramji. And then they took the son and presented him back to the spiritual master Sandipani Muni. And then they said, please request another favor from us. But Sandipani Muni said that having obtained them as his Shishya, as his disciple, that was his desire was fulfilled. So does anybody know what the sound of Lord Krishna's conch shell, what does it sound like? Have you heard what it sounds like? So in Canto 8, I was researching into this. So in Canto 8, it states that the Lord's conch shell, Panchajanya, sounds like the rumbling of clouds. We know that, we know, for example, that the sound of the conch shell in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita gave strength to the Pandavas. In fact, Lord Shiva told Parvati, just look at the Pandavas, that just by hearing the conch shell of the Lord, they regained strength. They are just like lions. But we also know that converse can occur. It talks about that in other sections of Bhagavatam, where it says this, the Lord's conch shell is always filled with the breath of the Lord. And so he can create a sound vibration also that causes trembling in the heart of enemies, like the Rakshasas and etc. So depending on one's mood, the conch shell can sound different. It can give upliftment to his devotees, and it can cause fear within those that are non-devotees. Very nice. So this, I wanted to pick this one. The Dwarka Vasis were all anxious to have audience with the Lord, although because of spiritual contact, they were never separated from the Lord. Just as the gopis at Vrindavan used to think of Krishna while he was away from the village for cow herding engagements, likewise, the citizens of Dwarka were all immersed in thought of the Lord while he was away from Dwarka to attend the battle of Kurukshetra. So, I thought that was very nice comment. So, this idea of being immersed in thought of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada introduces that right away in the Bhagavad Gita, in the introduction. If I don't know how many of you have read the introduction, but I know in our Bhagavad Gita group, we spent almost 3 months reading the introduction because everything's in there. The entire Gita is in there. Of course, the prayers to the spiritual masters. And the introduction is so advanced, it explains the 5 topics of the Gita, etc. But even I know oftentimes we don't discuss intimacy of rasas, but Srila Prabhupada brings it out right in the introduction. Just think of it. It was intended for the Western world initially. And so it's right there in the introduction. So the introduction is very, very complete. For those of you that haven't done serious study, I encourage you to seriously study the introduction. It draws from the entire Gita. So anyways, I had seen this in the past, and I thought it was really wonderful. This section that talks about absorption into Krishna, in thoughts of Krishna. So let me find that again. Please forgive me.
No, Prabhu.
So,
Prabhuji, we were also reading Bhagavad Gita introduction only, Prabhu. It's been a long time since we are in the introduction. As you mentioned, I was also remembering same thing. Lot of knowledge has been given by Srila Prabhupada in the introduction itself. Yeah,
I remember coming to Corvallis when you guys were doing it, and I think you spent a lot of time on the intro. First, Leela Prabhu had asked me to do the intro also when I was at Krishna Keshav's Prabhu's house. I remember that in 2003. So something that I really liked, or that I think is particularly relevant to this concept of, what Srila Prabhupada says here. They were all immersed in thought of Krishna, the Vrindavan Vrajvasis as well as the Dwarkavasis. So, what does that mean for us practically? So Srila Prabhupada says in Gita, we work not with our body actually, but with our mind and intelligence. So the intelligence and mind are always engaged in thought of the Supreme Lord. Then naturally the senses are also engaged in His service. Superficially, at least, the activities of the senses remain the same, but the consciousness is changed. The Bhagavad Gita teaches one how to absorb the mind and intelligence in the Bhagavad Gita teaches one how to absorb the mind and intelligence in the thought of the Lord. Such absorption will enable one to transfer himself to the kingdom of God. If the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then the senses are automatically engaged in His service. This is the art, this is the secret of Bhagavad Gita, total absorption and thought of Sri Krishna. So The mind is engaged.
Please read one more time, Prabhu. It is so beautiful. It is so beautiful, Prabhu.
Yeah, this is this art. This is the secret of Bhagavad Gita. Total absorption in thought, meaning in the mind. Oftentimes we say, well, the mind is, the subtle body, but it's still important. Total absorption in the thought of Sri Krishna. That's the secret of Bhagavad Gita. If the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then the senses are automatically engaged to his service. So this is just a way of linking into, the Dwarkavasis and the Brajvasis, right? How they're immersed in thought. So because they're immersed in thought, then that's total absorption, thought of Shri Krishna. And Kapil Dev says something very wonderful that Srila Prabhupada talks about in this verse that I was looking at. We had spoken in our Bhagavatam group up in chapter, where we spent, I think, 3/4 of a year on chapter 3 of Bhagavatam, Canto 1. So, and all it has all the descent of Lord. So we talked about Kapil Dev, and we spent, I think, 3 sessions on Kapil Dev reading from Bhagavatam. So I remember this beautiful verse of Kapil Dev's instructions to Devahuti, where he says, because she's asking, we're in this world with our mind. How do we, change from material absorption to spiritual absorption? So Kapil Dev explained, philosophy says when the mind is thus completely freed from all material contamination and detached from material objectives, it's just like the flame of a lamp. At that time, the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with him. When the mind is actually dovetailed with that of the Supreme Lord and is experienced as one with him, because freed from the interactive flow of material qualities. Pretty technical, but Srila Prabhupada's statement here is really nice. And you can get a sense of, he says, the best example of nirvana is cited in Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, the mind of Arjuna, here, go from here. In the material world, the activities of the mind are acceptance and rejection. As long, right, that's the nature of the mind. Intelligence provides discrimination, but the mind accepts and rejects. Bhajan Prabhu said something very nice about the nature of the mind. He said the purpose of the mind is to lament about the past and plan for the future. And I think most of us who do japa easily see the presence of the mind because we're always thinking about the past and planning for the future. That is the mind. That's not the soul. As long as the mind is, Bhajan Prabhu says that in his japa book. As long as the mind is in material consciousness, it must be forcibly trained to accept meditation on Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's for us. That's what we're trying to do with japa. But when one is actually elevated to loving the Supreme Lord, like the Dwarkavasis and the Brajvasis, the mind is automatically absorbing thought of the Lord. In such a position of a yogi, or the Dwarkavasis and the Brajvasis have no other thought than to serve the Lord. This dovetailing of the mind with the desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called nirvana, or making the mind one with the Supreme Lord. So that's Srila Prabhupada's, it says nirvasyam, nirvanam, right? So nirvana doesn't mean losing our identity. And then he gives us an amazing example. He says, the best example of nirvana is in the Gita. In the beginning, the mind of Arjuna, well, listen to this carefully because it's very practical for us. In the beginning, the mind of Arjuna deviated from Krishna's mind or desire. Krishna wanted Arjuna to fight, but Arjuna did not want to. So there was disagreement. But after hearing Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjuna dovetailed his mind with Krishna's desire. This is called oneness. This oneness did not cause Krishna and Arjuna to lose their individualities. when the mind is completely purified, when the mind is completely purified in love of Godhead, the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Personality Godhead. The mind at that time does not act separately. When the mind is complete, the mind does not act separately, nor does it act without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. You see that? Very instructive. So in the prior one, we read about Srila Prabhupada says that if the mind is engaged in Krishna's service, then the senses automatically engage, right? This is explained in many sections of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is the art, this secret of Bhagavad Gita, total absorption in thought of Krishna. And here Srila Prabhupada explains it even more. He says, when the mind is completely purified in love of Godhead, the mind becomes the mind of Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's nirvana. The mind at that time doesn't mean we lose our individuality. It means we don't act separately or without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. That's beautiful. Beautiful. And most of you have read chapter 11, Bhagavad Gita, universal form. And Srila Prabhupada says, devotee is not concerned with seeing the Vishwarup. Devotee is attracted by the loving features of the Lord. So, they're not inverse. Then our sampradaya is not in the mood of Aishwarya. Because Aishwarya, that exists in some other sampradayas, creates a mood of awe and reverence. And that mood of awe and reverence pushes one away from being absorbed in the mind of Sri Krishna. So I wanted to talk, this is all wonderful that the Brajvasis and Dwarkavasis are immersed in thought of Krishna. But how can we be immersed in the thought of Lord? How can we do that? So I wanted to explore that. We read this many months ago, the prayers of Queen Kunti. And she tries to explain. She says, Tvaime ananya vishaya, mater madhupate sakrit, pratim udvata dada, ganga vagam udhanvati. Very famous verse. So, O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you without being diverted to anyone else. So this is kind of explaining how we can be absorbed in Krishna, in the mind of Krishna. So the two most important parts of this line are, this, well, there are many, but Tvaime Ananya Vishaya, meaning undeviated attention, Matir Madhu Sakrit, undeviated attention or unalloyed devotion to the Lord. Undeviated attention. That's powerful to have that undeviated attention. How do we do that? So to understand that, we have to go back to a prayer she said earlier. Vipada santu tat saswat tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yatsyad apurna bhava darshanam. Srila Prabhupada used to say this very often, apurna bhava darshanam. I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that we no longer see repeated birth and death. Vipadu santu tat saswat. Let those calamities come again and again. So, we're not broad-minded, like that's surrendered like Kunti Maharani, that we say, let calamities come into our life. Correct? Purujan Prabhu, in a nice lecture in Vrindavan, said, it's nice to pray to the Lord, given these kind of prayers, but we have to be real. We're not there. So, but they can give us a hint of how to develop that mood of surrender. So we can't be Kunti Mahari and say, let calamities come again, right? How many of you want to say that to Lord Krishna? So at least we can seek the Lord's mercy to tolerate the miseries encountered by us and to focus our attention onto the Lord. She talks about tolerating the misery, having the calamities, which to us means tolerate the miseries that come in life, so that so that she can have ananya vishaya matir madhu sukrit. So to have that undeviated attention to the Lord, we have to follow her idea of tolerating the challenges of being in the material world. Not necessarily asking the Lord to give us calamity after calamity, but to develop that principle of tolerance. Because when we have that principle of tolerance for whatever physical, material distresses we may be having, then that will give us attention, that mood of tolerance. Even Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says it, right? Trinadapi sunirchana taror avisahishna amanina mandena kirtaniya sadahari. That one must be tolerant like the tree. Why does he say that in his verse? He's telling us to be tolerant of our false ego. That's why he says, first, Nam Namakari Bhauda Nija Sarvam Shakti, that the words of the holy name is filled with potency, Shakti. But I'm so fallen, I can't have a taste for it. Why don't I have a taste for it? Because of my false ego. That's why it comes after that verse about Nam Namakari Bhauda, our false ego. So we have to tolerate. We have to tolerate the association of our family, the association of our workers, association of our boss, association of society, and the association of devotees. Most important. So, because that tolerance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna himself, and in Bhagavad Gita and Kunti Maharani are saying that Matir Madhu Pati, that will give that ability to tolerate the Vipadu Santu Tat Saswat, the calamities, will give us that matir, that attention. And she goes on to say, Yatim Udhavat Adaha. So that attention will lead to undeviated attraction towards the Lord. Presently, we're having so many Zoom meetings, and Srila Prabhupada has so many books. We've just had 2 weeks of sadhu sangha or more, non-stop, right? Ever since Chaitanya Charan Prabhu came. That's pretty impressive. But presently, our attention level in chanting, reading Bhagavatam is not, my attention level is poor. And so attraction is not rising. We come into the Sangha of devotees and we crave attention, recognition, distinction. And so even in satsang, our attention is poor. We may be physically sitting in Bhagavatam class, but our mind becomes inattentive and nothing goes into our mind, so we're unable to absorb on any of the subject matter. Chijiv Goswami says this verse is clarifying this idea that attention, like, I'll backtrack. Vaisheshika Prabhu says something very nice. He says, where energy goes, where attention goes, energy flows. Where attention goes, energy flows. Like I'm thinking of if I'm thinking of my work, my energy is going to go towards my work. And if I'm thinking of my spouse, my energy is going to go there. If I'm thinking about my son or my daughter, my energy will go there. So, the idea here is may my mind's energy, my mind's attention go towards you, and my energy will go towards you, my absorption will go into you, and I will develop rati, an attraction towards you. So Jiva Goswami says it's like the example, why is Ganga being mentioned here? Said the Ganga has flows and flowers within it, within the great currents. So, and the currents carry the flowers. And so he says, let my mind therefore carry my attention towards you. So the Ganga's strong currents encounter obstacles. And as a result, if my attention is equally strong, it can destroy obstacles. So, this is very important for us. Hearing for a long time for us, that's why Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. It's always that sequence throughout the Bhagavatam. Hearing for a long time makes our soul acquire impressions. Impressions from current life give us our next body. And impressions of hearing the pastimes of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord, they leave us with impressions. Like, if you go to the ocean strong current comes, and even when the ocean's pulled out 100 feet, you can see the depression in the sand next to the ocean, because of that. So hearing for a long time gives us impressions, but that hearing has to be done with attention. And that way, it can awaken our attraction to Krishna and our absorption in Krishna, and such that our mind is one with Krishna, as described here by Srila Prabhupada. When the mind is completely purified in love of Godhead, which means getting to attention, attraction, steadiness, etc., like the Adar Shraddha verse, the mind becomes the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and doesn't act separately, nor does it act without inspiration to fulfill the desire of the Lord. So see how much can come out from Srila Prabhupada's precise statement right there. And Srila Prabhupada, since we live in the material world, something that I really like what Srila Prabhupada says in Gita, it's a phrase I always try to remember. He says, matter used for the service of spirit becomes spiritualized. Like the example, the conch. The conch is matter, right? It's physical matter. When it's used in service of the Lord, it becomes spiritualized. That's why it sounds like a cloud, and it's continually, the Bhagavatam says, it continually contains the breath of the Lord. So matter used in the service of the Supreme, or matter used in the service of the Spirit becomes spiritualized. Very nice, huh? Okay. I only have like 8 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm dragging. So that was one aspect I wanted, that idea of absorption was one thing I wanted to address. Radhakund Mataji, did you have something to say? I'm sorry, it highlighted. Do you want to?
No, Prabhu, it is very nice, Prabhu. This verse itself is very, very sweet and beautiful, actually.
Yes.
And the way you have taken us into, deep, discussion of this, very, very nice, Prabhu. How to ever, it's always a big $1 million question. how to engage our mind in Krishna consciousness. Mind
Yes.
is the cause, the place of all desires, and mind is the one which, diverts us all the time. So I'm still not able to
Yes.
understand how to, always focus our mind in Krishna consciousness. Could you please put more light on this point, Prabhu, so that it would be helpful?
The idea is to, Bhujan Prabhu talks about this explicitly in his Japa notebook about the nature of the mind. And so does Chaitanya Charan Prabhu in that Udarad Atmana Atmanam verse, beginning of Bhagavad Gita, verse chapter 6. So the key is to be present in what we're doing. Buddhists call it mindfulness, but I think Vaishnavas call it, being present in our relationship with the Lord. And so that requires a shelter taking of the processes of bhakti that we're doing. Like something very nice that I've heard Prabhupada Maharaj say in the past is the mode of service conquers the modes of nature. So, the modes of nature reside within us, in our minds, etc., conditioned. But if I look at chanting the holy name as and Hariparsha Prabhu talked about this too, right? When he was talking about japa. If I view chanting the holy name as a service towards Lord Krishna, then it will overcome the modes of nature. If I view like planning for something like, say, like Rath Yatra as a very, energetic approach, and there are many, many devotees doing things, and there's so many distractions, and one can, if one's an organizer, one can be overwhelmed that and get into the mood of like, I'm the master and the controller. That's mode of nature. Or one can say, let me engage in this service and engage others in the service so we can very nicely please the Lord. Or one can read the Bhagavad Gita and know the verses. Many devotees memorize lots of verses and use it to show our Sanskrit skills. But Maharaj said something very wonderful, and I remember it from so long ago. He said, if one instead says, these words flowed out of the lotus lips of Lord Krishna, let them come out of my mouth so I can purify my existence. So a mode of service overcomes mode of nature with the mind. So service to the holy name means to chant with attention and to glorify the holy name. Reading Bhagavatam means to chant with attention. Like Radhika Raman Prabhu says, if you look at the entire Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam is, of course, about many, many things. It contains, Srila Prabhupada says, there's no material or spiritual knowledge that's not in Bhagavatam. He talks about that in the pastime of Vyasdev's despondency when he was discussing the situation with Narad Muni. But Radhika Raman Prabhu is saying, yes, that's true. But essentially, the entire Bhagavatam is about relationships. Relationship between devotees and devotees, devotees and the Lord, devotees and Asuras, Asuras and Lord. Everything in Bhagavatam is about relationships. So, let me get absorbed in Bhagavatam so that I can reawaken my relationship with the Lord and my relationship with other devotees, like that. So, I think the idea is to be present and to tolerate our circumstances. Yes, my mind is like this. Yes, like this. But let me try. That's why, a lot of japa seminars are like focused on one word of the holy name at a time. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says in teachings of Queen Kunti that, it is said that chanting the holy name just once can give one, quote unquote, spiritual liberation. And he said this is not an exaggeration, but Srila Prabhupada said it depends on the quality of the utterance, meaning how we say it. Just some things I'm sharing. I plan to lot more, but I'm going to, for the sake of time, go into something I haven't even explored everything I'm going to say, but it's like my mind started getting absorbed in this idea of absorption, Lord Krishna. But I don't want to end without talking about this, because this verse is really talking about the sound of the conch shell and how it attracts and absorbs the minds. The sound of the Lord is identical with Lord, as we have tried to explain, by the non-dual position of the Lord. What does that mean, non-dual position of the Lord? Does anybody know?
Yes, Prabhuji, because there is no difference between the Lord's name, His holy name, His pastimes, His form, and etc., etc. So there is no duality.
Yes.
And the absolute plane, everything is same for the Lord.
Right, exactly. The material existence of our present state is full of fear. And he gives the 4 examples of, eating, fearing, mating, defending. We're always fearful due to our ignorance of the next problem. The whole material existence is full of problems. Thus, the fear problem is always prominent. So I had a big section of today's lecture that I was going to speak on that, but I didn't realize I would run out of time. This is due to our association with the illusory energy of Lord known as Maya. Yet all fears vanish as soon as there's the sound of the Lord. All fears vanish as soon as there's sound of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada talks about this once again when he talks about this, Kunti Maharani verse Vipadu Santu, this one, Vipadu Santu. He talks about that in other areas in his lectures, that she's saying, I welcome dangers, because when dangers come, I remember you. Prabhupada talks about in teachings on Prahlad Maharaj's pastime, that Prahlad Maharaj was putting him to, his father Hiranyakashipu was putting him to so many dangerous situations, but Prahlad was always thinking of Krishna. So being in danger, why is Kunti Maharani saying, Vipadu Santu? Because being in danger gives us impetus to remember Krishna. I think we all know that, right? I mean, I remember Srila Prabhupada one time, I was reading, all the devotees were in an airplane and there's tremendous turbulence. And Srila Prabhupada was just chanting peacefully, and the devotees said, Srila Prabhupada, there's a lot of turbulence. And Srila Prabhupada looked at the devotee and said, yes, we may die at any time. So that kind of, danger, and there are so many dangers. It basically is an opportunity to remember Krishna. And she's welcoming it because, remembering Krishna is the doorway to advancing in spiritual life. That's why Krishna says, Tyaktva deham punarjanma nayati mam. So Arjuna, right? That one who knows and remembers me does not come back into spiritual life. So many places in Bhagavad Gita. So, she's aware of birth and death. Kunti Maharani, she doesn't want to repeat the process, and that's why she said, Apuna bhava darshanam. That if one sees Krishna, seeing Krishna means being in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport. And that means to be absorbed in thought of Krishna, like the Bhagavad Gita verse we showed and the teachings of Lord Kapil Dev that we showed. So the whole idea is to tolerate this material world. Because Srila Prabhupada talks about, that tatta tanukampam shushram krishnamana verse of Brahmaji, Canto 10, that it is your mercy that, my dear Lord, when I'm put into this difficult situation, the devotee is not looking at the difficult situation as danger. He's thinking it's Krishna's mercy. Why? Because bhunjana evata kritam, that because of my past activities, I was meant to suffer more. So, and that's a very high level. That is true. Because, if we can look at all circumstances, opportunity to be absorbed in Krishna's thought, see Krishna, think of Krishna, read Krishna, work for Krishna, like that, then we're saved from, a punarbhava darshanam. That is the benefit if we become absorbed in seeing, feeling, thinking about Krishna. So I was just thinking about that based on Radhakund Mataji's, idea or question. So does anybody know of a verse in Bhagavatam where it talks about how the chanting of the holy name extinguishes fear? So
We could be first canto,
this is here.
chapter 14th verse.
Yeah. Apanasham system. Thank you very much. Apanasham system ghoram yan nama vishvasha granam tata sadhya vimuchita yad bhivati swayam bhayam. The living beings who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed immediately, even Mataji, even unconsciously chanting the holy name, which is feared by fear percent. So, some system ghoram, meaning material, the terrifying material life, vivasha, helpless, and sadhya, immediately. Can anybody think of an example of that? Somebody unconsciously chanting the holy name of the Lord?
Ajamil.
Yes, Ajamil, past tense. That's a famous one. So, Shamsritim means samsara, means birth and death. Due to what? Due to our material activities. But the verse is saying, if we surrender to Lord Krishna by taking shelter of the holy name, then one can come out of that. Even if we have inattentive and unconscious chanting, Lord Krishna is kind enough to protect a devotee who's trying. And the result is sadhya vimucheta, immediate liberation for what? What kind of chanting, Narottam Vilas Prabhu? Immediate liberation for what kind of chanting?
Unconscious chanting too.
Yeah, unconscious chanting. So what to speak about, attentive and prayerful chanting of the Lord's name? So here's something secret that I read about the chanting of the holy name a long time ago. That it relates to that pastime of Sanatana Goswami giving the touchstone, and the person who received the touchstone didn't know its value. So most people can't appreciate the value of chanting. So for this reason, there's indifference to the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The idea here is that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is an open secret, but it's revealed only to those that have qualification. And that qualification is appreciation for what the holy name carries. It's an open secret, but it's revealed only to those that are qualified. So much to be said. I'm already 9:06. I see I'm going beyond time. So can I show you guys something? Does anybody know what is the auspicious day today? It's the disappearance day of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Who's Gopal Bhatta Goswami? Anyone here know? Yes. So who are his presiding deities?
Radharaman.
Jai, Shishi Radharaman ki Jai. So this is Shishi Radharaman's darshan. He's so beautiful. There's this, I really love Radharamanji's pastimes. And this is the website of the Radharaman temple, which Srila Prabhupada said had the highest standard of deity worship. something I really like this section here. If you go to there and go into deity worship. So, you know, if you're feeling like you need some energizing, read this. It talks about the daily worship. As a Mangalartik, as the first rays of morning light spread. Well, you guys can read here. Alakun Mataji, why don't you read this?
Sure, Prabhuji. As the first rays of morning light spread across the sky, Sri Radharaman Sriji awakens. Soon, eager devotees swarm into the temple to quench their thirst for the nectar of his beauty in the auspicious time of Mangalarti. Sriji's attendant Goswami waves the lamp in graceful rings, binding the divine youth with the protection of his love and dispelling any negative energy that might bring him harm. O Sri Radharaman, you and Sri Bhattagopala are bliss personified. Everything that is eternal is becoming visibly auspicious with your darshan during this blessed time of Mangalarati, which is beyond compare. A night filled with romantic pastimes has come to an end. Sri Vrindavan Dham is auspicious too, and her trees and vines are enticing the heart. The cooling, fragrant breeze is blowing very gently, and the bliss has already spread across all the kunjas and forests. Sri Gunamanjari sings an auspicious song to praise Sri Priya Lalju's virtues, and as she absorbs their darshan, she experiences supreme bliss. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
When we do Mangalartik, do we think about how we're binding Lord Krishna with the protection of love and dispelling any negative art? You know, here Narottam Das Prabhu, you can read this one if you're still present.
Yeah. Then the curtain falls. After the eternal youth brushes his teeth, he is bathed and dressed with greatest care by his Goswamis. Finally, the curtain parts, revealing the glory of Shriji's handsome form amidst the spreading aromatic smoke of the Dhoop Aarti. The scent of the smoke from the fragrant incense made of a mixture of sandalwood, agarwood, vetiver, and camphor fills Sri Radharaman with so much joy. The burning fumes look like new clouds forming in his Nikunja. The trail of the golden light from the wick of the Aarti dazzles like lightning striking between those clouds. The echoes from the ringing bells sound like the bliss of roaring rain clouds. Gunamanjari says, the peacocks are making auspicious sounds, and seeing this, Shriji is overjoyed. Now Shriji is ready to go and graze the cows, but not before his mother and the gopis serve him privately with a rich breakfast. Jai, so beautiful. Thank you.
It's beautiful, right? Here, Anita Mataji, I think you're still there. This is for Shringar Aarti. These are meditations.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Can you
Once
read it?
fed and fully dressed, he sets out with his cows and cowherd friends. Finding any opportunity, Shriji slips away to meet his beloved Sri Priyaju and her friends, Sakhis, under the shade of the forest trees, flowers and creepers. The Sakhis decorate this moment by performing Shringar Arati, an auspicious ritual to keep the sweethearts safe throughout the day. The Madhurya bliss from seeing Sri Priya Lalju together again brings Gunamanjari so much joy, and she performs Shringar Arati. Her emotions have taken the form of the Arati plate, where the ghee is her affection and the lamp is lit by the fire of their amorous love. She offers her smile as camphor and her tears of joy for water. The rest of the Sakhis are playing a variety of instruments: flute, veena, sarangi, mridang, and sitar, making the atmosphere ever so blissful. The humming bees and the tinkling of ankle bells bring life to the sweet music. Jai. Thank you, Prabhu.
And thank you. Neelam Mataji, I see you're still there. Do you want to read this one? Can you see it? So this is Rajbhog Noon. I don't think Mataji is there, so I'll read it. The curtain is drawn. Sriji rejoins his friends and walks and wanders through the forest. Later, he meets again with his soulmate, Sri Priyaju. So Priyaju is Srimati Radharani. And when he feels tired and hungry, she serves him delicious, rich dishes prepared with greatest care by his Sakhis. The royal plate is filled with flavors of their love, and enjoying their midday meal, both Radha and her Raman find themselves in relaxed mood, Radha Raman. The lovers are greeted with Rajbhog Aarti. Soon after, Sri Radha Ramanji with his sweetheart retired to rest in a nearby grove. The sun is about to set, and Sri Radha Raman will awake soon. Knowing this, a blissful Saki takes the veena and starts to play Rag Dhanashri, very softly adding vocal melody. The parrot and the Maina bird join in with their singing. In the eternal service, Sri Gunamanjri plays Mardanga so sweetly, and hearing her soft beats, Sri Priya Lalju awaken. The evening sun, Sandarshan, this is our Dhup, with a Dhuparti, again, filling the entire atmosphere with aroma, then fruits and refreshments and snacks are offered to Sri Radha Ramanji. And this is Sandhya. Here, Radhakund Mataji, you can read this one. This is when we do Kararti.
The sun is now sinking. Krishna, his big brother Balram, and their cowherd friends return home along with the cows. Thereupon, Mother Yashoda welcomes her children by performing Sandhya Arati. Our life's treasures are Sri Radha Ramanju and Sri Bhattagopal. All glories to them. Oh Sriji, you look so grateful with your peacock crown and a garland of flowers around your neck. Your earrings are like makaras, and the beautiful bindi on your brow is sparkling. The waves of curly hair that sway against your cheeks and your big lotus shaped eyes make your face all the more enchanting. This beauty of yours is captivating the gopis of Braj. The waist belt of tinkling bells and the ankle bells that you wear are making the sweetest sound. You play a beautiful melody with your lotus lips upon the flute as you walk through the lush pathways of Vrindavan, just like a grateful swan. And your beloved Sriji Gopal Bhatta Goswami Ji is always besides you. I offer my life to this blissful form, Bali John. Sri Gopinath Das Goswami says, Sriji, you take care of all your devotees by giving them your protective shelter. This divine form of yours is so charming. Sri Radharaman Lal, you are the crown jewel of the Rasikas and so dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eternal family. O merciful one, you attract Sri Rup, Sri Sanatana, Sri Gopal Bhatta, and the rest of the 6 Goswamis to you. Those who have touched the dust of your lotus feet upon their heads are showered with the blessings of your sacred love. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Vilas Prabhu, are you still there? I don't hear Prabhu.
Yeah.
Do you want to read this one?
The boys returned by the end of the day, covered with dust spread by the cows. After bathing, they dressed in a comfortable evening attire and hungrily demand their dinner. My dear boy, please be patient, answers Mother Yashoda as she brings the evening meal. This is the Aulai Sandarshan. Aulai literally means I am about to bring. Oh Sakhi, today Sri Radha Raman Lal is looking especially unique. He's only wearing his taniya, and the darshan of his limbs in this dress is simply amazing. His body is covered with fragrant oil, and he is wearing a turban, which tilts to one side. Gunamanjari says, Shriji's eyes are like the arrows that have pierced my heart. When Shriji has relished his meal, he falls in with his friends, chatting and enjoying the melodious music being played for him. Eventually, he feels sleepy, so before he retires, Lalita brings warm milk and Rupa Manjari brings fragrant betel leaf. Lalita brings nectar and milk in a cup made of gold. Shiji is becoming impatient to drink it, but Lalita offers the milk to Shiji Piyaju first because she is dearer to her. But offers the milk to Shri Piyaju first because she is dearer to her. Then she offers it to Shriji. Noticing Lalita's cheekiness, Radharaman laughs as he drinks the milk, and in between his sips, He has sweet conversations with Priyaju. When the treasure of these blessed darshans is captured in the heart, nothing else can compare. All the devotees offer their lives, Balihari, to this divine image of Shiji and Priyaju. Rupa Manjari brings delicious pan and gives it to Guna Manjari. The fragrant pan is filled with katechu, katha, slacked lime, tuna, coconut, giri, cardamom, elaichi, areca nut, supari, and powdered pearl, mukta. The ingredients are flavored with essence of screwpine flower, kevra, and the leaf is rolled into a triangular wrap and pinned together with a clove, long. As Gunamanjari lovingly feeds Sri Priya Lajju the pan, she secretly gives a generous serving to Priyaju because she is dearest to her heart. This is so detailed, Prabhu. This
Yeah, it's like,
mind blowing.
and there's a Shyan Arti. Does anybody want to read this? This is the final arti that's offered to Father Ramanji.
I will love to, Prabhu.
Sure. Please,
If someone wants to go, please go ahead. I want to.
No, go ahead.
Okay. When the time comes for sleep, the last arti of the day is offered, called Shayan Arti. In perfect silence, the devotees worship Shriji with their eyes, while his attendant, Goswami, delicately waves the lamp. The bamboo flute plays, and the gong quietly sounds the most gentle lullaby. Sriji's eyes are becoming ever so drowsy, and realizing this, Sri Priyaju takes his hand and leads him to their room. The Sakhis come together to witness this darshan, which fills them with complete bliss. As Gunamanjari is blessed with the delightful vision of Sriji's heavy eyes, she offers her life and everything that she has to him again and again. The doors now closed, all the devotees and servants of Sri Radharamanji silently depart, their hearts filled with the eternal beauty of their beloved's combined form, Sri Radharamanji. Yeah, thank you, Guru.
Yeah, I when I first read this, I thought this is why Srila Prabhupada is saying that they have the highest level of deity worship. You know, that intimacy that they have, you know, that's totally the mood of Braj, right? So it's absorbed in thought of the Lord. It's just totally absorbed in Him. So whenever I feel like I need some like quick pickup inspiration, I look at Him, and I see what true love of Lord Krishna is. So, Shri Gopal Bhattachar Goswami ki jai, Devangara Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premnandi Hari Hari Bol. So you can just go to Shri Radha Raman Temple Vrindavan website, and you can see these lots of darshans. Okay, thank you. As usual, I'm always late. Thank you, Nathalas Prabhu, for facilitating the gathering, Radhakund Mataji, Neela Mataji, Anita Mataji. Thank you all for tolerating. I hope you have a wonderful day. I know I didn't leave any time for questions. I think Radhakund Mataji asked some questions. So if there's unless there's something pressing, I think we should move on. Is that okay?
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the very enlightening lecture.
Haribol. I know it was covered some topics pretty deeply, and I'm sure there are questions to still be answered. So thank you. Nartamalas Prabhu, thank you. Radhakund Mataji, thank you. Anita Mataji, thank you. Neela Mataji, Puna Mataji, thank you so much. See you this afternoon. Hare Krishna. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
All wishes. Pratitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
wonderful class, Prabhuji. Today's everything is so good. Thank you so much.
I see one.
Yeah.
The
Please repeat here, Prabhu.
meditation, Prabhu, object of meditation. Today's class is, we cannot meditate on this actually. This verses itself is so beautiful, and the points you have brought up and added is very beautiful. And also finally added nectar is rather yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. The way they describe how they do arti and their mood is like mind-blowing. It's
Yes.
like so intimate. The pujari is playing bamboo flute and a soft gong to put the Lord to rest. I mean, that's deity worship.
Yeah, I wanted to read one more time, Prabhuji. That's why I was just checking where it is. So,
What I'll do is, do you guys want me to paste it into the chat here?
yes, Prabhu, our group is there, Punya Shravana Kirtanam. So could you please post the link over there, Prabhu, so that we can release it today again, one more time?
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Narottam Vilas Prabhu, if I do that, since you maintain that site?
Thanks, Prabhu. No, Prabhu. I said, no offense, Prabhu, but the best part of the lecture was the last part of Radharama's
I
discussion, Prabhu.
agree. I kept thinking of how can I bring Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Radharaman Ji in there, because he's the best. Okay, I'll put it on your WhatsApp group.
Thank
Okay.
you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Bye-bye.
Hare Krishna. Hare